Good afternoon. Oh, come on, can a brother get a good afternoon? Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you. Welcome. So good to have you here. There is a book, a novel, an Italian novel called Il Gattopardo, which means the leopard, and by Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa, and when it was published in 1958, it was the best-selling novel in Italian history. And I probably don't need to explain to you that Il Gattopardo was about life and changes in life and society in Sicily in the 19th century. And you guys are thinking, what is he talking about? Where is he going with this? Hashtag obscure Italian literary references. Hashtag pretension. Hashtag get to the point. There is a line in Il Gattopardo that's not about sustainability, but it's too good not to be. At one point in the book, the prince is talking to his nephew, who's about to go off to war, trying to talk him out of doing that. And the nephew says to the prince, is trying to explain why this is a worthy cause. And he says, if we want things to stay as they are, things will have to change. If we want things to stay as they are, things will have to change. What an incredible summary of what we do. Trying to transform our world so that we can maintain a way of life. And of course, that begs a lot of questions like how much change, what needs to change, how much is it going to cost, what are the risks, how much change can people stand in? And by the way, do we really want things to stay as they are? Because they're not necessarily good for a lot of people. Sustainability, like life itself, is complicated. The bumper sticker Twitter version is always much more compelling than the nitty-gritty of getting stuff done. You guys know that better than anybody. But this is an interesting moment. This is a really interesting moment right now. And it's about change. And change, and you know, is probably your biggest obstacle, maybe your biggest enemy for what you do. Change is hard. Change, whether it's internal, external, upstream, downstream, above you, below you, or next to you. Change is hard. And that's what we're going through right now, is this moment of change. So, you know, if we want things to stay as they are, things are going to have to change. The complications of simple slogans versus complication, we see that every day. Best articulation of that is this Green New Deal. And whatever you think of that, and there's opinions across the board from it's amazing to it's horrible to whatever it is, you've got, and that's just, by the way, in the environmental and progressive communities. You've got to appreciate the conversation that it's starting. You know, on one hand, this is probably the first adult conversation about sustainability that we've ever had in the United States, that I can remember. Maybe you have other thoughts about that. And at the same time, it's being picked apart like an animal in the jungle. You know, can't air travel. I mean, all these things that are not even true. But, you know, air travel, you know, cows. No, you know, we can take away my guns, but not my hamburgers. You know, there's so many things that are being. Oh my God, socialism! Look, there it goes. You know, it's everywhere. It's this thing that everybody wants to do something with, but not necessarily embrace. And I'm not saying that it's not even a legislation, it's an idea. And I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm saying it's a really interesting idea at a really interesting time, and that creates a really interesting moment for all of us. Because if ever there was a time that we need to share what we do, what we believe we can do, what we know we must do, this is it. This is our moment. And by the way, if we sit by and leave it alone because it wasn't invented here, they didn't ask us, we didn't weigh in, it's too ambitious, it's not ambitious enough, and it just sputters and dies and goes away, shame on us. Shame on us. Because what's going on right now is this conversation, and a conversation is always two ways, hopefully multiple ways, where we can weigh in and be a part of this moment. And who would have thought, even a year ago or 6 months ago, that we would have had this moment? So that's just one of the many sort of who'd have thought moments that we're having. I mean, who'd have thought a year and a half ago that we would be having a global conversation about ending plastic waste? Who'd have thought? It's not a new issue by any stretch, but who'd have thought that we would get to this catalytic moment when we would be talking about this? And the circular economy and companies from the world's biggest brands all the way back to polymers and monomers and the petrochemical companies and the innovation crowd looking at alternatives to petrochemicals are having this amazing moment. Who'd have thought that we would be talking about carbon removal, not just emitting less carbon, but actually drawing it down, and that there are businesses, companies, big companies, the existing companies, and new companies that are starting to look at that as an opportunity. Who'd have thought that ESG, environmental, social, and governance metrics would emerge from the hinterlands of SRI to the center stage smack in the middle of Wall Street? We just had a GreenFin summit, ended about an hour and a half ago, where some of the world's biggest institutional investors and some of the world's biggest companies sat down to have a real conversation, maybe for most of them for the first time, to talk about how do we align this so that we're both working towards the same goal. Who'd have thought we'd be seeing that? So it's just a really interesting time. And I have to say, as someone who's been in this field for 30 years, yes, when I started I was a brunette, that we would be in this moment, that we would be having some of these conversations. It's just an extraordinary time, and I think that it's also, of course, a frightening time. The indicators are going all in the wrong direction. All I have to say to you are the words 12 years, and you all know what I'm talking about. 4,000 some odd days from now. Not an end of days thing. It's just that it's a moment in time where we need to have our act together. We need to be moving much, much faster. So it's a very scary time, but I have to say that I am as excited now as I've ever been about what we all do. And to that point, sustainability is an inherently optimistic profession. We show up every day thinking about what's possible, thinking about how to improve things in our companies, in our communities, in the world. How many professions can say that? I'm sure some claim that, but how many actually get down to doing the hard work it takes? We think in ideas, we think in possibilities. We talk about moonshots. So it's in that spirit that I want to challenge you for the next 3 days about what's the who'd have thought moment that you want to see happen over the next year? What's the who'd have thought moment that we can talk about at GreenBiz 20 that we did not see coming, or that maybe something we've all been working on forever that finally hits that critical mass, that tipping point? Because I think that's the kinds of possibilities that we need to be thinking about. So what's your moonshot? So as we go forth in this world, if we think about the fact that, yeah, if we want to keep things as they are, things are going to have to change. Let's figure out how to do that. Let's figure out how to think bigger, think bolder, and really lean in more, even more than you already do. Because I think that's the possibilities that we see in this moment that's coming towards us much faster than we thought, but also these possibilities that are staring us, hiding in plain sight, staring us in the face, looking at, waiting for us to step up and take charge. So thank you for that. And with that, welcome to GreenBiz 19.